Hi there, and thank you for clicking on my video. This is the third video in my resource farming guide collection, if you will. This is going to be for more heavy hitting. This is going to be more helpful for uh, clan warlords, maybe people that help people in an alliance farm for their clan. I'm going to share some of my methods for providing brief respites for 30, 40 people at a time, helping them help me, sort of thing. These are some of the methods that I use to target farm, like specifically target farm, and provide resources at a clan and alliance level. In the past, using some of these methods, I have my own alliance. And one of the things that I will do is if I ever have a clanmate that gets to a high enough MR, and they want to start their own clan, um, I will offer them the ability to make their clan and start their clan in the alliance so I can help them with resources. And using these methods, I am able to somewhat routinely, though not all the time, completely fund their clan with all the resources they will need to max it out. This is for people that are decorating dojos. So this is not going to be a video for people that need 10,000, 20,000, some thousand of something. This is for people that need hundreds of thousands, if not millions. This is going to be incredibly specific, incredibly sweaty. Uh, so just word of warning. But this is the closest thing to hyper farming that I can possibly think about. It's very specific built. Um, I am assuming with this video you have a bit of plat to spend. Farming relics are not issues. Your Helmuth is maxed because we will be talking about Helmuth abilities, and just generally having mods. I am just going to assume you have all of the Kubros for this video. So this is definitely for a later game uh, player because we will be talking about flexibility options, um, where it's target farming a specific enemy versus mass farming a bunch of enemies. So just word of warning. The other videos were short, and I'm just going to cover as much as I can in this, and I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm just going to talk. But okay, so let's first talk about hyper specific farming. And the example that I'm going to use is Silver Grove Specters. Say you are in my position, and you need to help Nubros get as many aura mods as possible. You do. They don't. They get one of each, right? One of the methods that I use for this team setup when you farm Silver Grove Specters is to farm Silver Grove Specters as easily as possible. First, you need the resources for it. So you are going to use the Oxalis with the Botanist mod to passively generate plant scans. As you help out Nubros, help them in the star chart, just always have the Oxalis on. And as you run through the mission, as you're helping them do Earth, as you're helping them do Venus, as you're helping them do Mercury, you will be generating a ton of scans as you do this. And I will in turn use this time as I'm helping him do the lower missions, be able to generate apothecs. So this is my setup for the Nubro Helper Oxalis. Scan matter is kind of nice. I had a free slot. Resource containers within 60 meters are revealed on the minimap for 8 seconds every 30 seconds. It's like a little... Oh, with the scanner, the Cephalon scanner, the synthesis scanner, sorry. You know how it has the pulsing green wave that comes out of it? It looks like that. except you won't have the scanner up, and you can see anything that shows up. Will actually show up as you're running around. You don't need to be zoomed into anything like with the scanner. So this is super helpful. Obviously run primed animal instinct, and between botanist, scan matter, and primed animal instinct, you should be able to visually see and passively gain enough scans to completely fund up to a mountain clan in terms of scans. So let's talk about target farming specific enemies. Obviously, we wouldn't be using this if we're farming a specific enemy. You would actually swap over, and you can see I have 7 Forma in this. You would have a Chesakubro, and I'm assuming you have this, and you were going to build this as a tank. It's not going to tank, but you're going to build this so this thing doesn't die as much as possible, okay? Like I was doing this, like Mecha Overdrive doesn't really go here. This one, I guess just whatever else you want here. You should know how to build these. But this mod particularly is a loot on death, and to reference what we're going to be abusing, I pulled this up from the wiki, the Desecrate page. There is loot while alive, loot while petrified, loot on death, and loot on corpse. So we are going to need at least 3 of these. And the thing that makes this easiest, okay, is petrify or gaze from Atlas's petrify is his Helmuth ability. So when you're running hyper-specific farms, like say for the I forget what it is, where it's like a Jugulus Rex or the Spectres for Titania. I forget what the name is, but the Spectres on Earth, or even what's the big things in Plains of Eidolon? The jumping guys. I'm drawing a blank here, but the 4-legged guys, the machines with the machine armor on Plains of Eidolon that you have to farm stuff from, you can run this also, even though Orgaze won't work. And good luck getting Ivara's Prowl to proc. But you can run Necros and Chesakubro to give you a better chance of the Desecrate effect working, the loot on corpse. Korra's Strangledome, I don't think works. But if you're running this, and you are hyper farming or target farming a specific enemy while you are not killing anything else, the way Retrieve works is there's a 45% chance to scavenge additional loot from a fallen enemy or containers within 30 meters every 10 seconds. Though this sucks overall, where it excels at is where you are in an isolated location or you aren't killing anything else. This mod will prime itself. So every 10 seconds, it will trigger and then wait for the next enemy to die. So if you're doing Spectres on Earth, I really want to look it up, but whatever. The enemy in the Plains of Eidolon, where it's the jumping guy, you can not kill anything for 10 seconds and guarantee the 45% chance. Now, it won't guarantee the additional loot, but it will guarantee that the chance has the chance to trigger on that specific enemy. So it won't be like a loot container or something like that. Where the Smita, for example, you have to have the buff up, and then it will guarantee the double drop during the Smita buff. If the Smita buff isn't up, you essentially have to sit there and kite the thing out. With this, you don't have to wait. The double chance, the additional loot, works the same way as Necros. So with this, and Necros waiting there, you will have a 54% chance for double loot, or to reroll the loot table for an additional loot on Necros. But you will also have Retrieve backing it up with a 45% chance to trigger also if Necros Desecrate doesn't trigger. So instead of having a 54% chance on something that you can't split in half, you have a 54% chance and a 45% chance, which is with those two backing each other up, that is a significantly higher chance of double procking the loot. So if you're target farming a specific enemy and you're not killing anything else at the same time, running Chessa when farming specters is better than waiting on a Smita buff and kiting something out that's just cast Sarin Spore on you. So with this method, when I farm with a Korra, an Ivara, a Necros, and probably a Nubro tagging along. And I can get 3 out of the 4 loot chances. So if a Spectre spawns, right, they generally spawn kind of invisible and then they'll load in. With an Apothic, I'll load it in. We'll spawn it in. Ivara will pickpocket. Korra will cage. Once the pickpocket is complete, make sure it's in the cage before you kill it. Then you'll kill it. Necros Desecrate has the chance to kill, and if that doesn't trigger, kill it with Slash. Make sure to kill it with Slash. Then Necros will attempt to desecrate both parts and retrieve. If Necros Desecrate doesn't trigger, then you have the backup chance of retrieve triggering on top of it. And you don't have to wait for a Smita buff. So for hyper-specific, single target, single enemy, the only downside of this is once you kill a Spectre, you have to wait 10 seconds. And though there's technically an animation, don't wait, just count to 10 and then repeat the process. It's way easier to just count. Even with all the settings on, I can barely see the little puff. So put the Apothic in, CC the enemy, let loot or pickpocket from Ivara trigger, cage it, kill it with a slash weapon, and that'll guarantee the highest potential chance of drops from that single Spectre. You can get up to 4. So keep that in mind. And then, of course, you have, what, 1 of every Apothic for each person, so that's 16 chances. The highest I've gotten was 30 in a single run. 30 mods. Silver Grove. Okay. Silver Grove and the Tusk Thumpers. I'm thinking of Tusk Thumpers. So 30 mods from the Silver Grove is the highest I've gotten. And that's per run with 4 people. So that's a ton of mods. You also have, for Tusk Thumpers, this works also. Because generally, when you're chasing a Tusk Thumper around, you're not killing anything else. But you have to make sure the 10 seconds is expired. So say there's a bunch of annoying enemies. You would do the same thing. Necros, and Ivara, and you would use something to kill all the enemies, and then you would wait 10 seconds before you blow up the Tusk Thumper. And everybody would have Chessas. And you would take, what, Necroses also? And that way it guarantees as much loot as possible from that single enemy. So for farming a specific enemy, this is the way to do it. And if anybody has a better method, please leave a message in the comments. But the Chessa, I've upgraded this guy so I can use and abuse him when I'm farming the Silver Grove, and Tusk Thumpers take this guy. It's like an extra Necros, but it's a guarantee. It's a 45% on a single proc. So you need to not be killing a bunch of enemies at the same time. Let's talk about group farming. Okay. Say you have a room that you're building and you're decorating in the dojo. which is probably the most expensive farm in the game, talking to my fellow clan warlords, um, you would need to min-max as much as possible, because I know I've got a 10x multiplier right now. And generally, I'm solo farming it, or I'm farming with three or two, maybe three other people from the clan, just because there's a bunch of new bros in it right now, and I'm cool with it. It's my burden rate. So the ideal team would be um, would be Korra, double Necros, and a Nova. And in order to amp the loot per second, we actually have to do something. Uh, it's map re-rolling. I don't know what the actual Warframe specific jargon term is, but a lot of really older players know about this or do it naturally. Uh, Even though the maps are completely RNG, and I'll show you the actual process. Not only is the map type, so we're beyond dark sectors. I'm assuming you know this stuff. Steel Path, Fissures, you know how to tell the difference between which node you should farm. If you're farming something specific, like you need alloy plate or salvage, this applies to every map. But we're talking about the actual mission you load into now. Okay. Um, you know about the slash bonuses, like the slash bonus for Necros, how that benefits them, um, and how Korra should mod. Korra needs to be modded with a slash weapon to increase the DPS as much as possible. Um, if you do not have a Korra that is strong enough, I would recommend getting yourself a good stat stick. You should know how to build stat sticks for this portion. But one of the things that's like a hidden amplifier is Ivara. Necros can die sometimes. Or not die, but he can go down to 0 health to the point his despoil will turn off. And especially if you're farming on the steel path, the Necros can't be entirely asleep. Because sometimes the acolytes will come along and turn off your despoil. So you would need a Korra, a Necros, a Nova, but also a good multiplier is a range duration Ivara, right? Because her bonus, because her additional bonus, she pulls from a separate loot type. And Ivara would literally... Which one is this one? Ivara... Okay. So the issue with this is I was messing around with Petrifying Gaze on her, but there's a weird interaction where Petrifying Gaze and Korra's Cage don't really like each other. So I took it off. But the thing you're looking for is she needs to have at least 100% extra loot. So let's see what that is. 100%. Okay, 100% power strength. You would need a ton of duration and range. And the problem is that the range on her prowl isn't that big. So you're kind of pigeonholed into doing double range on her. And you don't want to use narrow-minded because it'll tank your range too much. What's the other one? 1.2. I mean, generally that's pretty good. Ideally, you want it around as low as possible, right? But you would go like a range duration. So this is 7 meters, and you would have her stand essentially right where Korra is whipping. right before where the enemies get drug in, she would just chill there. And it would be everybody else's problem to the keep any nullifiers that appear if you're doing like a void farm or doing like a corpus farm. It would literally be everybody else's problem to make sure that she doesn't get bopped. So you would do like a Korra, an Ivara, a Necros, and a Speedva. Okay? Because it pulls, even though you're not running double Necros, and the slash matters, you would be losing Necros procs. Ivara with a minimum, or with a, where you min max Prowl, barely beats out because it's pulling from a different loot pool. And obviously, in the massive farm, everybody in this situation would have Smitas to guarantee as much loot as possible because it's about kills per second, right? So this would be an example of the build. You would try to get range up. In this situation, you could also do like a streamline. I have to actually... yeah, like this, whatever. To keep Prowl up as much as possible, keep the drain down as much as possible. But you really want the range and you really need the steal time down. So it's constantly popping. So this would be something that you would want to do as an alternative. If you don't have the ability to do this, because say you have too much Forma, just go double Necros. Nothing wrong with that. Wisp is also a good option instead of a double Necros if you find this a little too sweaty. But just because of the loot tables and where everything gets pulled from, doing an Ivara ends up being pretty efficient. Because Necros can only desecrate, what, 3 times a second? That's why you need to go double Necros sometimes, because if Korra has her 50% slash IPS ratio, or 51%, which she should have in this situation, if you're hard farming something, with slash, a single Necros can end up dying, or running so low on health, his despoil will turn off. Also, another trick you can do to make farms significantly more efficient is Helmuth on Magpul. And I actually have that on Necros. And reason being is on a range build for Despoil, I'm trying to stand back as far as possible. The bigger my radius is, and the further back I can stand, the closer enemies will spawn and load in to me, the faster the spawn rates will be. But also, I do get a very small drop chance, and I don't run a lot on this. If you try, the problem with running more more power strength on this is the pull is stronger. But more importantly, with greedy pull and this, the range is 47 meters. I can yank stuff from really far away, which keeps me safe. It makes doing survivals like a camp style significantly more efficient. And I actually run pool on my Wisp also for when I'm doing a 2-person farm where it's Necros and Wisp. The problem is that the pull on Wisp, because it's a power strength Wisp, which it should be if you're doing a long run, is so much stronger, you actually yank all the enemies into you. Because it's just so much stronger. It's like 337% or whatever it is. So with this, make sure to run, if you're looking for an alternative where it's just an easier, safer way to collect loot, I would recommend on Necros running pull. Pardon. Because on top of that, you have the extra drop chance also. And it's just a little bit of RNG. It's not a lot, but it's still more than compared to if you didn't have it. So this is a way to stay safer, especially if you're doing a camp build. It allows people to pull enemies closer, and even if you're running like a Korra, right, like a Korra camp, the power strength Wisp isn't that bad because you pull them into the cage, right? Like you pull them into the cage faster. So instead of having enemies need to run into the Korra cage, into her grab range, Korra can then run a slightly smaller cage, and Wisps can just stand there yanking shit into it. So with a max duration range strength Nova, you can massively amp your damage. Normally you just want it as weak as possible. Or not strength. Do not do strength. You need it to be a speed Nova. So with a max range duration Nova, one of the benefits is eventually with Korra Cage, because everything's piled on top of it, even though the strength is so much lower, the range makes up for it, and it starts triggering chain reactions, even at higher levels. And the double damage helps Korra out. That's why you want to run those two specifically. And Ivara, you just want her to stand in the middle, pickpocketing everything. If you're running Ivara also instead of double Necros, it's up to you with your kill rates. If you're having trouble finding a good spawn rate map, Ivara becomes more favorable the lower the spawn rate is. But if you find a map that's really popping and is a really high kill rate, Necros then becomes favored, running a second Necros. So it's up to you. The higher the kill rate the map is, the more Necros is favored. The lower the kill rate, the better it is for Ivara. So that's generally the rule. But don't forget about your Helmuths also. Greedy pull on a low power strength Necros, like a Despoil Necros. Korra. To be honest, since Korra gets to run a slightly smaller cage, you could actually swap out regular Stretch, as troll as this is. Swap out Stretch and put Equilibrium there, because there's so many health orbs being spawned from Necros. Even if Korra is spamming, okay, between the Necroses and all of the loot being dropped down right onto Korra, because everything should die in the cage. With everything dropping down, Korra can almost go without flow. Almost. So, a smaller cage, the Wisp is constantly pulling stuff into the cage. Korra is instantly killing it. And it removes the purpose of Korra needing to run a huge cage, because you're going to have Wisp yanking everything into the cage. And even then, with a power strength Wisp and Nova, I have pulled enemies with a pull on a power strength Wisp for like 300k damage. The multipliers get insane. And that's like Steel Path and everything in like an hour in. Like, you really start hurting stuff. So that's a way to, because Korra currently has an issue, and a lot of you will know this from one of my other videos. Korra Prime has an issue with shield gating properly. So you can actually get rid of Stretch if you're running with a team. I know that seems troll. But with this, for a proper sweaty farm team, you could run this and be infinitely shield gated if you have a Wisp that's yanking enemies into your cage, because you just don't need the range then. The range to pull enemies in would be on the Wisp with the pull, and you would literally spam it, the pull on Wisp, because the strength would be so high, it would pull and yank everything except an Eximus. It's like a vacuum cleaner. It would just clothesline them. So that's the fastest way I know how to farm. The only thing extra I can really talk about, and this video is getting super long, it's longer than the others. Let's talk about rolling maps. What to look for. There's a really easy... Everybody knows it, but let me tell you about the qualifiers. And this is so sweaty. But listen, if you're decorating a dojo, my dudes, let's be honest, like 1 million plastids isn't anything. 10 million plastids, it's gone in like an Entrati ballroom. Like in these situations, you wouldn't even take the Panzer. So, okay, so what you'd be looking for, and there's one mission that's really easy to talk about, but there is a specific type of room. With this one, we're going to use Chimeria, and we're going to talk about rolling rooms and what to look for. And then we're going to talk about one additional thing, which is ultra sweaty. And you know what I forgot? Okay, we got the spawn. With that guy always dropping down. Okay, so this is the main camp spot for this map particularly. For this tile set. So what we're looking for... Okay, that room's good. We're looking for tunnels connected to big rooms. So this is a 0. This room over here is a 1. And this is a 0. So this would be a bad camp spot for, like, truly getting your spawn rates up. What you're looking for is a big room, this one, effectively, connected to a room you can hide in. That's a spawn. Generally, enemies don't spawn in your spawn. They'll spawn next to it. So to abuse that, even if you're standing here, very much in this room, right? You're standing over here. Enemies will never spawn in your spawn area if the door is open. So, like, as long as somebody stands here, enemies won't spawn over here, like 90% of the time. But we're going to re-roll this map. We're literally just going to leave and go right back into the map and see if we can find an example. And I use the number system personally. Like, if you try to use that, somebody else might not know what you're talking about. But what I'm looking for specifically is a big room next to an area where enemies can be forced not to spawn, with as many open access points with other rooms attached to it, not small rooms. Okay, this is a bad spawn. I mean, it's usable, but we're talking about min-maxing here. Because we don't want enemies spawning too far away, and that room is too big. Alright, we're going right back in. And this can take a bit. If you're doing this with a big group, like with 4 people together, everybody needs to be rolling maps. All 4 people need to be rolling maps until somebody gets it, and then everybody leaves their mission and gets invited to the other person's mission. So everybody's rolling maps to get a good spawn. And through time, you will naturally see what the proper spawn area is. If you want to be in a spawn area that's mobbed, where you get mobbed where you're in the center of a big room, you still need all of the rooms connecting to that room to be rooms enemies can enter from. I know, hot takes only. So this still applies, but you just change your location if you have like a really competent Korra. So we're literally just rolling. And you can do this in Steel Path, you can do it on Fissures. It doesn't cost you any relics to join and leave. Alright, we got our spawn. Just use a cipher or whatever. Okay, orange. Okay. This one's connected to a big room. Let's see what the other ones are. Okay, that's a 0. We're looking for at least a 2, but ideally 3. Okay, this would be a bad spawn. I mean, it wouldn't be bad, but it wouldn't be like a top tier spawn. But the giveaway is that when you look, when you first spawn in, you want all of those doors to be orange for this specific map. And you would set up specters here, and they would have free access to shoot all of the enemies in a group. So you want a spot with a ton of rooms that or with access to it, unimpeded access, and an area where specters or you and your team can easily defend, and all of the enemies are forced to come up this area. And it's easy to group them. Like, everybody knows that this is like a good spot to literally just fire away, and a Brahma with Prime Firestorm like this one can easily just nuke everything for a couple hours. But to really get the spawn rates up, you need that triple door access, and I just don't have it. So this has only got one good attached room. So we'll just keep rolling till we get a good example. We want at least two. At least two. But if you find a room that has a small cutout that you can spawn in, or that you can hole up in for a proper camp, but it's adjacent to a big room with multiple big rooms attached to it, that's a fantastic camp spot. Nope. I don't think it's going to give this to me, and I'm recording. But I hope I explained that. And if you want to sit in the middle of a room, which is completely up to you. If you want to sit in the middle of a room, it's a little bit more risky. You have to be a little bit more advanced. But I'm guessing if you've gotten this far, you probably are. And you were doing Korra with like a hyper farm team. Korra would need to run more range. She would have to be able to shield gate because she's going to be obviously doing most of the damage. Then you would worry about the grab range, and it's really easy to check. Literally roll the mission beforehand, and somebody stands where the Korra cage is, and just waypoint in particular spots, and whatever that waypoint is, the shortest one, or the farthest one, that's what the Korra cage needs to be able to grab. So adjust Korra to whatever it is, if it's the right spot. Maybe you end up with, Korra ends up with a free mod slot, you know? And you'll just adapt to each mission. Alright, that's another garbage room. Garbage room. So it's got to be this one. Okay, this has only got one good room. So we wouldn't use this. But you know what I'm looking for now. I don't think it's going to give me, of course, because I'm recording. But make sure to get, and even then, you could even run, like without Korra. You could run double Necros, a Wisp, and Nova, and do all right. You would be able to benefit more from like a Spectre camp. And it would help a lot with Eximuses. I've done a lot of camps where it's been really long, really relaxed, where it's literally a Necros farm. And we didn't use a Korra at all. But just to maximize the loot abilities, you would try to do one of each. And only when you're doing a specific enemy would you double stack Necros and Chessa. Because what is it? Hydroid and Korra doesn't stack. So Ivara, Atlas, Korra, Necros, and a Smita would be a really good stack. But there's a weird interaction between Orgaze and Strangledome. Because Strangledome needs to grab the enemy, but if you're running enough power strength on Orgaze, it's a little difficult to get like high range or make it spammable. But if you're running Orgaze and they get frozen, right? Like they get turned to stone, a lot of times the Strangledome won't trigger. And if the Strangledome grabs something, sometimes you can't get the Orgaze on it. So it's a weird interaction. Like it would be really good for like Vauban to be the grouping frame. You could Orgaze the enemies in Vauban's 4. So I hope this helped. This went on way longer than I thought. So team synergy, make sure to sync up the looting abilities. Uh, loot while alive, loot while petrified, loot on death, loot on corpse. Make sure you don't double stack those too much, though it is pretty recommended because of the kill rate to do double necros. If you're hyper farming, are trying to maximize farming a single enemy, run chesses only in that circumstance. Otherwise, the Smita beats it. So when you're doing your Tusk Thumpers and you're doing your Silver Grove Specters, run the Chessa. If you're running like a resource farm, consider your wave clearing abilities on defenses. Say you're doing Oxium. And the Necros would need to run as much range as possible, and I would recommend a double Necros in that circumstance if you're AoEing a bunch of stuff. If you're doing a survival, which you probably should be doing. The only other piece of information I can give you to consider is if you RNG having fissures and you are doing a resource farm for a long time, then and only then, if you don't care about the steel essence, which to be honest you probably do, I know I do, but if I end up like when Tennokan was coming up, for example, instead of doing steel path just to be able to get relics casually, I was running fissures instead. So I could farm, so I could get the prime relics and everything, so I could buy what I needed to buy. But eventually, survival fissures, with the exception of the mod booster, the mod drop chance booster that comes with Steel Path, eventually survival fissures match the resource drop rate of Steel Path. But that's only after you've been in it a while. Because what is it? The resource drop bonus from fissures goes like 25, 50, 75, 100. Well, that's like an hour in and change in a survival. So if you're doing like a long survival to just knock resources out and call it, you have the option of either farming steel essence or farming prime relics. If you're doing a long survival to like knock out decorating like a big room, it is up to you which you value more, the steel essence or the relics. So that's food for thought as well. I hope this helped. The only thing, it can be kind of, oh no, hold on, I feel obligated. It's relatively new information. I forget the YouTuber that posted it, but I want this. If you have any other, I will look this up and add it in the comment below who it was. I'm gonna Google it right after I do this video. If you are running like abilities on your Kubro, like you know how there's the other precepts, you want retrieve to be higher than the other ones. Like say you're running neutralize or scavenge, for example. There is a priority with the precept mods, and it's more essential on sentinels. Make sure retrieve, if you are running this, like say instead of synth deconstruct, that isn't affected because that's more of a passive, but say neutralize or scavenge. Let's just go with that. Retrieve is as close to the top right as possible, so it triggers and has priority over everything else. The sentinels are a bigger deal, like say with the Oxalis. You want, because I'm not running like assault mode. I didn't have to worry about it on this build. But say I was running assault mode, like here, if I had assault mode up, the sentinel would prioritize attacking over scanning. But if I have botanist first, the sentinel and it's hitting something, the sentinel will stop shooting at something to scan something. Man, I really wish I could remember this. Hold on, I'm actually gonna go because it'd be super disrespectful to say this because this isn't my information. You are. Okay, Tanner Lindbergh is the YouTuber, and I'll provide a link to his channel. But he's the first person that I saw that posted about the priority of the Sentinel mods. And it works on the other ones. I've confirmed it since then. So make sure when you're running like Sentinel mods, if you're doing like Helios or something, say you really don't need to like super sweat the resources, but you just want scans, make sure to do this also. And I'll post a link to the guy's channel. But I hope this helps. If anybody can think of anything else that I didn't say in this 45-minute video, I tried to talk as extensively about it as possible. Make sure your teams are squared away to personal preference. Make sure to know the difference between Relics and Steel Path. And roll maps to a preferable room setup. Because once you're in a mission, if you're doing a long run, it's literally the difference in like several thousand kills an hour. So that would be the way to get like the maximum number of kills possible. It's if you can kill enemies with a single whip claw, it doesn't matter if there's 5 enemies there or 100. It still deals enough damage to kill them. So why not have 100? So that's the only thing I can think of to boost that even further. But I hope this helps. It's as much as I could possibly talk about that I can think of. Have a blessed day, guys.